like stay on mute if you're not talking, that would be really helpful, just to avoid any background noise. But more than welcome to have your camera on. It's always nice to see people's faces. So just to introduce the webinar and what we're talking about today. So this is the second out of 3 webinars with Social Landscapes, talking about the gardens and outside spaces of Treadgold House. So I think you've had an initial conversation about some ideas, and this is now going into like the concept development. So I'll just introduce all of our team. So I think if we go on to the next slide, that should have
that's better.
So I'm Hannah Smith, and I'm Sustainability Project Manager for Lancaster West. So I'm just going to be chairing this meeting, taking any questions. So if anyone has any questions throughout, then feel free to like put it in the chat, or if you I think you put a hand up in Zoom, and then we can answer those straight away. So happy for people to ask questions throughout. Also with us today, we have Lizzie, who's a Community Development and Innovation Officer. So she's also in the room with me here, if you can see it. And we have Alfie, who is Project Support Officer for the refurbishment, and Kat, who's our Sustainability Programme Manager. Yeah, we're all working different parts of the Lancaster team. Everyone's been involved in the Treadgold refurbishment. And then today we also have Social Landscapes with us, who are going to be talking specifically about the outdoor spaces. So I'll let them introduce themselves.
Good, thank you, Hannah. So with you today is also me, that's Michel, and Tish. Both of us are from Social Landscapes, and we're gonna deliver this workshop with you today. So to give you a brief overview, I'm going to do a very, very brief recap of who Social Landscapes are and what we do. Then we're going to look at what are some of the main outcomes from the last meeting. What were some of the key things that residents have mentioned, and we'll go on to introduce those design elements, or basically to give you some visuals for those ideas of what that could look like in the space and where that could potentially go, and it'll be really good to get your feedback on those ideas. And then we'll introduce the third and the last workshop as well. So just a brief word about Social Landscapes. We're a community interest company based in London. We work with various community groups, supporting them to reimagine and redesign the public spaces that surround them, whether those are green spaces on housing estates like yours, or in local parks. We work as well. And our work is about creating connection between people, creating relationships between people, and also between people and the spaces they inhabit. And we believe that that supports well-being for people and the planet. Good, so some ideas from the last workshop that have come up. So I think one key thing, or the main key thing that residents have mentioned, is that there's too much shade for the green spaces around Treadgold House to be enjoyed. So residents would like to see more sunny areas and benches and tables in those sunny areas, so that they can have maybe picnics or spend time with their children. You also said that a sort of play area for children would be a great idea, somewhere safe away from the car park. Kids often play in a car park. There are mixed feelings, mixed ideas about the car park. Whether one or two spaces of the car park could maybe used for something else, like an outdoor gym or maybe a greenhouse. There was also the idea of a functions and gatherings room, and a general feeling that the gardens are not really inviting, especially the gardens on the front and to the side of Treadgold House, but also the back garden being too shady and not being very inviting to spend time there, and not that well used. Especially the planters, they don't seem to be used very well. And residents have also expressed concern about the pigeons that come to their balconies, and that they've been putting up netting over the balconies. So these were some of the points, or the key points, that came up during the last meeting. And what we want to do in this workshop is build on those ideas. As I said, give you visuals, and then also hear from you what you like and what you or where you would see those elements be placed. Yep. So yeah, there we go. And I give that over to Tish.
Thanks, Mish. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sort of go through those pointers with, as Mish said, some sort of visual stimulus of some ideas. So these aren't things that are set in stone. They're just sort of concepts that can hopefully start to get the imagination going of the sorts of things that we're thinking that could help sort of improve the space. So it'd be great to get your feedback on these. As I said, there's no anything set in stone whatsoever, so it's all open for discussion. So the first element that we will sort of look at is there was a lot of shade in the garden. So Mish, if you can just flick through the next couple of slides, so you can see from, this is just a screenshot that I took from Google, good old Google Earth, but you can see here, this is obviously taken in the summertime, and it demonstrates very quickly how you can see how much foliage there is covering the garden spaces in the surrounding gardens around Treadgold House. So you can see at the back there's a lot of foliage, certainly to the sort of the left side, and then even you can see the trees casting a shadow in the gardens at the front on Beaumont Road. And then if you can take the next slide down. And then even in this shot here, so this is taken in the communal garden, you can see that there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different trees already in the space that you can imagine when there's a lot of foliage, when there's leaves on the trees, it does cast quite a lot of space. And it does throw up a bit of a conundrum, especially for us, because we're the sort of company that actually goes around and plants trees rather than takes trees away. But I think there is a balance between, if the trees are stopping people from using the space, then what can be done. And there's a couple of solutions that we can put forward. The first one is to remove the trees. So if we remove the trees completely, something that we like to do as well, we'd like to somehow use the timber, use the wood in the space, so at least we can recycle the actual trees themselves. An obvious one is, if you cut the trees down, can you make it into like a table or something to stump into a tabletop, and use the trunk maybe for seats around it. I think another way that we myself and Michel were discussing were, if often councils and people don't really want to cut trees down unless the tree is diseased, or if it's in a sort of dangerous situation. So it's a case of we'd have to, the trees would have to be pruned down, but then there's a maintenance issue, because obviously they're going to grow. So those are just two options that we could suggest to help create more sunlight, more light into the space. And once you do get more light into the space, you can start really creating some interest in the space. So some of these images here are things like on the borders. So you've got on the left hand side of the, so Mish, if you can go up to the previous slide a minute. So you can go back up. Yeah, you can see on the left hand side here where that wooden bench is, you've got quite a lot of evergreens, and you've got to remember that this is winter time, so you know, there isn't going to be a huge amount of colour and interest, but they are very similar types of plants along that back edge. And then on the other side you've got that quite blocky, quite solid box hedging running along the fence by the car park. You could flick back to the next slide, Mish. So our suggestion is, you know, can we put some sort of colour into those spaces? So maybe it's a case if we can choose some plants that actually create colour throughout the year. So you can have flowers in there. So you can get evergreen plants that have flowers in the summertime, but say berries in the wintertime. Also, the box hedging on the car park side of the communal garden, it potentially that could be removed, and you could get some more border type plants that actually, that instead of having quite a wall going along that side, if you remove that box hedging, maybe lowered it, put some other sort of foliage and planting along that side, that also would actually bring more light in. So even if there wasn't so much, if the trees are trimmed and there's still foliage in the trees, perhaps that sense of blocking that space off will sort of ease a little bit by not having such a barrier between the created by the box hedging. Other things as well, we could put things like stepping stones into the place that potentially could help create a little bit more interest. Maybe there's a pathway navigating through the space. If you flick to the next. And then one of the things that came up, I think a couple of residents spoke about this last time, was creating some sort of space that was safe for children, that create a little bit of interest. We know that there's a playground very close to the garden, so there's no objective to put a full playground in. I don't think that's we don't have the space or the necessity for that, but certainly a place where kids can play and there's a little bit of interest, sets their imagination off, a bit like a playscape rather than a playground. So these are some examples of ideas that we quite like the thought of. So again, maybe if the trees are cut down, you can have a sort of stump stepping stone or climbing sort of a structure. Also, you can create quite nice willow structures as well. They're very simple to put in, and they create these nice little shelters for children to sort of sit in, or adults to sit in for that matter as well. I know that one thing that somebody mentioned was about kids playing football in the car park area, and there's an image that I think I can guess why they play football in the car park area, because on the if you go, yeah, here you can see on the storage room there's an obvious goalpost, football. So I can imagine that's very useful when you're playing football. If you can flick back up again, Mish. So perhaps again you can use some of the branches or trees or something, if the trees are taken down, to make a little goalpost, perhaps in the far end of the communal space. The other ideas are just some other little structures, sort of play structures that you could potentially put into the space that don't encroach on the space. They don't sort of what's the word? They don't sort of spoil the environment of the space, but they just give that little bit of playfulness to the space. In the top far right corner, you can see this sort of coloured fencing, and again, something that you could potentially run along the inside of the metal fencing, like a barrier between the car park. And this is something that we've done on another project, where you engage the residents or the children of the flats and give them a little post each, and they can design their own sort of post of the fence, which, you know, every time they go into the garden, at least they feel like they've had a little bit of an input into that. So I think ways of engaging children or residents into the space is just one way of creating that type of ownership. The other thing as well is potentially creating bird boxes, or those are quite fun to do in a workshop, or again another sort of engagement piece that can entice people into the garden. Mish, next. And this is just a little conceptual sketch of potentially what it could sort of change into. Say if the trees were taken down, you can start to see how the space starts to open up, especially without the box hedging running along that sort of far fence between the car park. So I think there is potential for this space. There is opportunity. I think that you've got some nice seating in the space. You've got a couple of picnic benches there. So I think that certainly opening the space up and creating a little bit more light, less barriers, could really make the space start to work well for residents. If you just go down one more slide, Mish. And this is so this little space here is at the far end of the car park. I think you're probably all familiar with it. It's the storage space. And I think, again, going back to what I was saying about the kids playing football in the car park, and obviously it's not the safest place for them to play, but maybe if we change the sort of dynamic of them playing on the grass, play if there's a goalpost, then what can you do with this space? This sort of brick wall, and potentially there's opportunity to create a nice sort of mural that could soften the space. And also it's an opportunity there to put a green roof maybe on the top of this structure, with potentially, again, you could lay sort of wild flower meadow at the top there, increasing wildlife and biodiversity. Next slide. And I think it's over to you, Mish, now. Thank you.
Sorry, I just couldn't find the unmute here for a moment. I actually think it's a good moment to also ask residents on the call what they think of what. Yeah, so what do you think of what Tish has just shared, and do some of those ideas resonate with you? And yeah, what does and what doesn't resonate with you? So feel free to come in if you want to.
Oh, how do I get in?
Yeah, Pat, you're welcome. I can't hear you now.
Any better?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, me personally, I love the idea of the trees disappearing. It would open it up. I know it's everyone to their own, isn't it? But the big one that's outside my bedroom window, I mean, it's a nightmare. It's not pruned properly, and it's the same with the others. They're just not kept up to date proper, you know, and they're just all intermingling with one another now, which is sad, but doesn't let any light into the garden, you know.
Sure. So even pruning would help quite a bit.
If they've done it regular, yeah, but they seem to leave it. I know on mine, they won't touch it until the actual leaves, you can ring up and say it's touching my window. But you've got squirrels. I mean, I'm alive with squirrels out the other side, the back of the block, running along my sitting room window now. So I can't have a window open. They're trying to get in, you know what I mean? And there's far more down in the garden, which is nice, but not when they're coming up trying to get into your rooms. I've had one in once. That was enough. It ransacked one of my bedrooms, and I'm on the 4th floor, so I don't know about any of the others. And I know they did get into one bedroom as well on the 2nd floor a couple of years back. So yeah, if they can prune them, all the better. But some of them I think can be taken out, definitely, because they're just an eyesore. I like the thing that you've done with the making the benches, you know, with the wood.
Yeah, using the wood of the tree for.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Could you go up a slide?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with there we go, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there anyone else on the call of residents who like to share their thoughts?
We've got Maria here, I think, has some comments. Yeah, Maria, we're off mute if you want to chat.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, you can. Yes, welcome.
I just wanted to comment about the gardens. They need to be leveled up first of all.
Okay.
They have been banning people to go into the gardens because they're not safe. It's too risky, according to the housing officers.
So you think the ground on the in the
Yes.
garden,
Firstly, they have to be leveled to, to prevent accidents or risks that we've been told to.
yeah, okay, so that would make them more accessible for residents. Yeah, okay, that's good to hear. And did you like some of the ideas that that Tish presented?
There are gardeners who maintain the garden.
Yeah.
They prune the trees, they cut off the hedges, and
But not the trees.
I don't know, I'm on the ground floor and I get enough light. And there's a big tree on the corner, and sunlight still gets through it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't up the top. Don't know if you can still hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, Pat.
Yeah, it doesn't up the top. I'm on the 4th floor. It blocks one bedroom of mine completely out. And obviously down the bottom, I suppose you would get more light because it's quite a huge tree. So I don't know.
It depends. Yeah, it really
Then-
depends where you live.
I've been observing squirrels coming up through the walls, not through the trees.
Yeah, and the trees. But I don't mind them in the trees. It's when they're coming along my windowsill.
Sure. Good. Yeah, thank you. Is there anyone else on the call who'd like to add something?
The flowers and that you had there, they look very pretty. They look quite nice. It did make it look more like a garden.
Yeah.
And you're right about that green edge, that goes along the car park. That could do with smartening up. I mean, they do come round regular, do all that, and they just don't cut them trees. You've obviously seen. You must have taken photos. They're interlocking from one side to the other, and they're just all bunched together now.
Yeah.
And I don't see the point in putting nice seating down there when you can't sit on there. You know what I mean?
Why not?
Good.
One thing I want to know, are you going to remove the old tables and chairs surrounding in the garden, in the communal garden, or?
I mean, we are just collecting ideas from residents, and with that give some suggestions of how the space could be made more welcoming and inviting. So
Of course, we'll be needing more benches and tables. That's it.
more benches and tables, yeah.
Yeah, I think I commented that in the last meeting about.
Sure, that's why you can see on this image that existing bench is on the right corner here. You can see the edge of it, but there's another bench and table, or stools and table added. So yeah, those are all options.
Can I just ask a question? I know that in the communal garden there's quite a few benches and picnic benches already existing, but I noticed in the other gardens there aren't any benches. So the ones around the sort of the perimeter, so Bowmore Road, is that where you're thinking you'd like more seating in that area, not just in the communal garden?
Bowmore Road, no.
For reasons I don't want to put on here, I don't think that's wise, but nevertheless, let everybody else have their say. Okay. I don't know about round the back. I can't. I don't know if they get the sun. I know we can get it. I get the sun up here, but I'm not sure if it gets down into the garden
Okay.
because of all the trees and that are out here, out the back way here.
So it's not worth considering putting seating or benches in the other spaces, then not in the communal garden, but the other sort of gardens around the edge. It's not worth.
I presume, really, I mean, that's down to the people that live down there,
Okay.
but it would cause problems if we get people that can go in there and sleep on them through the night
Okay.
or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
By the way, the Bulmer Road Gardens, residents over there, are you allowed access to your garden? Are there anybody living on that side with a garden? The 1 or 2 bedroom?
On the ground floor?
Yes.
They're all bed sits on one side, the ones out, you know, where our entrance is.
Mhm.
They're all bed sits along the bottom there.
So are they allowed to have access to their garden?
Well, they would probably say no because but I don't know. I mean, they're allowed to come out into the big garden. I don't think they would like it, put it that way, but I don't know. It's up to the council to decide that.
So that's the part of the garden that we want to come to as well, and want to have some. We do have some suggestions, and also taking the things that you mentioned last time on board. So yeah, so there's timber planters in those gardens. They are not being used, or they look unused at least. So, and you said they're not used very well. So we were thinking, what are some ways that could be changed?
Oh, is that the one?
So here you can see an image of one of
yeah, I don't think anyone's using them now. The people that wanted them there, you know, they lived in here then, and they used to go down and, you know, grow stuff in them. But obviously they've got to come through the gate at the end there. That's where I'm saying all the bed sits are along there.
So it seems like there's a couple of issues from hearing you about why this space is not used so well. Partly the access. It's hard. It's you kind of walk past other spaces, and that also or other houses, I guess, homes.
Yeah.
And that also leads to you have the privacy issue of like feeling a bit like you're in someone's back garden.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's a question of like, how could different access be created? So that's something that could be looked at. And also for those beds to look a little bit more loved or a little bit fuller, I guess.
Those are beautiful.
One thing is they could be planted up with things like you see here, like herbs or even fruit bushes, things that basically come back every year. So not vegetables that you need to plant again every year, but something that fills the bed a bit and is also useful. So we could put signage there of what these herbs can be used for, and also how they can be looked after.
Yeah.
A lot of them are very low maintenance. So that's one option of using those planters better. And then of course is the question of how they are accessible. There was the mention of a potential potting shed or a type of greenhouse where the gardener could raise plants, but also residents could get involved, and you could maybe sow some seeds that you can then plant on your balconies or in the planters around the building. So that's something that we've looked at, and we have on these pictures you can see there's a few like simple sort of greenhouses, like the top.
Where would you mean to put those?
Yes, well, I'll come to that in a second. The option
Yeah.
for that, and then you can also see this more like a greenhouse potting shed sort of mix. The picture on the bottom left. And just looking at the space, there's a few options where those could go. One, as we talked about last time, is obviously the using one of the car park spaces for that. And from there, having an access into the main garden.
Yeah.
It could just be in the main garden. That would obviously not work so well if the goalpost was being put in the main garden, but if more sun, if the main garden is opened up a little bit, then a greenhouse could also go into this space.
Yeah.
And also, if the access to the garden around the buildings was changed and there was an access from Bowmore Road to those gardens, then a little greenhouse could potentially even go on in the areas where the planters are, where there's not direct view from any windows from people living down there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're very keen to hear your thoughts on that as well.
I commented that last. About
I don't know. I wouldn't be using it, put it that way. So I'll leave that to someone else to say whether they want that.
Yeah. Sure.
Do you think you'd
So-
use it?
Pardon?
Do you think you'd use the greenhouse?
As long as it's located in the communal garden, to have access to, I mean, the other residents can have easy access to it.
Yeah.
Do you mean the main garden in the back?
Yeah.
So like up there.
No.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So like those ones.
yeah.
Another suggestion would be flower beds and, fruit beds or vegetable beds.
Sure.
Be also put in. Is that the timber planters you're talking about? I mean, they
Yeah. So the timber
be
plant.
installed in the part where Grenfell Road is.
Yeah, they are
Yeah.
existing planters, and they, as we've seen, they're not used very well. So I guess that would be a concern of adding more planters if the existing ones are not used very well. So there could be an option maybe of using these, and moving these to a space where they could be used more.
As I said, they should be leveled up. The garden has to be leveled up first.
Okay. Yeah. Do you mean the communal garden or all of the green spaces around?
All of the gardens,
Yeah. Yeah.
the ones adjacent to the flats as well.
Yeah.
So do you find it difficult? You'd find it difficult to access, I'm assuming, to actually access those planters anyway. There's quite a few limitations. So there's the actual walking through past people's sort of back doors.
Yeah.
And then there's the actual ground itself is difficult to navigate. So it sounds like there's a lot of limitations that have stopped people from actually using those planters for what they were there to sort of.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Cool.
As I say, the people that wanted them in there, they've all moved out, as far as I know.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that was one of the problems. It is walking, through. You're going past people's places at the bottom there.
Sure.
That lady that's speaking, whereabouts do you live? On the back side?
Pardon?
Whereabouts are you? On the
I'm
back
in the
side?
corner, on the number 10?
Number 10. Okay.
Yes, the corner.
Yeah. You're underneath me. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Are you at the top here?
I'm at the top. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Forget where you are.
I mean, at one time, I did get a couple of them at gardens made, you know, out the back for them. But obviously we couldn't get the money to like secure the money to make an entrance. They used to climb over the garden. You know what I mean, to get into the garden, because over the balcony, if you know what I mean, because we've got no entrances.
Well, the balconies are going to can be opened up, because I think they're going to add it up to make new balconies apart from them.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be the old balconies, if I understood right, would be added up as space for the house, the interior. And
Yeah,
you can
that,
always
I think,
request that to be open and have an exit there. That could be also an exit for any emergencies or fires.
yeah. Well, I did try years ago, but as I say, it's money all the time, isn't it? But whether they could.
Well, now we have the money, isn't it?
No, that's what I'm
There is
saying.
money.
We would have the money probably this time, but I don't know. As I say, you're down on the ground floor, which I'm up the top, so I think that you should decide. The people down there should decide what's outside their houses. You know what I mean? Outside their flats. It's
Yeah.
not up to me to sort of say what you should have.
Yeah, there's, at the other end, it's vacant, it's empty. It's
Yeah,
refurbished. So we are only actually 3 on the ground floor on that side who are accessible, supposed to be to gardens. And
yeah,
for a fact, the one beside me is really amenable to having that access to that garden.
yeah.
So
See that the flat at the other end that you're saying is empty.
yes,
As far
it's
as I
empty.
know, that's not council. That's private. So I don't know how we go with that. If you know what I mean. There's a lot to consider.
Yeah, it seems like the basically the accessibility to those spaces, whether that's for people living on the ground floor or other people, you know, if there's a way to access these spaces, it seems like
Yeah.
that
No,
would
it would be
make
good.
it more used. So that's something to consider, I think. And
Yeah.
so making it more level, and also finding ways of making this garden more available to.
Because it is just wasted space around there, because people can't get out. They've got to climb over their balcony to get, you know, onto the grass, and it's not very nice around there, is it? The lady at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's
So we have another part of to get to, and first there's something that very briefly came up, and that was sort of the idea of an outdoor gym, and that was not both of you who brought that up. So, but yeah, the question, of course, with an outdoor gym is the modern ones that you see popping up around places on the left-hand side here are quite expensive. So it would be, for something like this, it would be important to make sure that there's enough residents who really would want to
really
use.
want them. Yeah.
Of course, something much more simple, integrated into the gardens could be more easily done, like the ones on the right-hand side. But of course, that's a question that I think there would need to be done more survey in terms of finding out who would want to use these sort
It's
of.
not even that. It's health and safety and whatever. You know, everything.
Good. So I'll pass on to Tish, because we wanted to also come to the balconies before we finish this session. But yeah, thank you for the input on those gardens, and we're going to certainly take that on board and look at potential designs. Tish, over to you.
Yeah, great. So the last part of this webinar, we're going to talk about the balconies. So the new retrofit, the design, I think if you can flick to the next slide, Mich, this is a very loose conceptual sketch from the architects. I don't know exactly the final details, but I think it starts to give you an idea of the things, the sort of the type of balconies that are going to be considered for the refit. So I think that you know, it sort of comes under this idea of it being an outside area for residents.
Yeah.
And I know that there were a few things that were brought up in last week, the last webinar. So we just wanted to sort of, I suppose, address some of those issues and see what solutions we could potentially find for them, but also think about how you would want to use your balcony space, and to inform the architects about that, sort of how you want to use it, so they can sort of give you almost like a set of options of the types of things you would like sort of on the balconies that would help you facilitate that function. So if you just go to the next slide, Mich. So these are a few of those sort of elements that you could, it's almost like if you were given a list of options of the sorts of fixtures and fittings you could have on your balcony, what would you choose? All of them or none of them? It's that type of thing, so we can inform ECD what residents would like, or the sort of thing they would like. So I think there's things like, you know, you can have planting on your balcony, and would it be a case of you'd like plant boxes that you can have that can fit to the sides of your balustrade, and just to note that they're probably going to be on the inside rather than the outside of the balcony, just for safety reasons. And you can get some great balcony boxes that have little reservoir water in them, so you don't have to fill them every day, type thing. Equally, you know, do you want suspended hanging sort of planters or hanging baskets, and is it a case of that there can be a type of fixing that could be integrated into the balcony, into the ceiling of the balcony, so you can have that sort of clipping on feature, that you could create that sort of hanging cascading feature on your balcony. Equally, do you want, you know, there's green walls, or having sort of windbreakers, and this is a sort of more of a green wall, but it's something that you could have as a green screen that potentially you could have on one side or both sides of your balcony for privacy, or to stop any wind, for example. And then if you look to the next image, you can see these sort of very, very thin cables coming down. I know, Pat, you mentioned about the pigeons. It was you, wasn't it, about the pigeons?
Yes, it was me.
Yeah, I was looking at the types of preventative sort of methods, and it seems to be that you either get that sort of typical mesh netting that doesn't look so attractive. It looks a bit sort of temporary, and I can imagine after a while.
I know, but it keeps them
nice
off there, so you know, it's just a nightmare.
Yeah, so this is more of a
no, I love that. I love that balcony. Yeah.
Method where you can, it doesn't encroach on your vision or your view out of your balcony,
No.
but it sort of it becomes part of the design of the balcony itself. And you know, we were chatting about it the other day and saying it actually could be a preventative if a parent has a small child or something. Is again, it could be that extra sort of safety feature
thing
that could be integrated. You could also, you know, have your pots on your balcony, and you could have climbers that could also sort of climb up these little wires as well. So
I used to have all that
multifunctional.
Yeah, but I had to get rid of the lot of it, all my plant pots and everything. So you know, used to, I don't know if they still do it, used to do shows, you know, go around all our balconies and all that, and you'd win prizes for the best one. But
brilliant, I love that idea.
Yeah, all the pigeons, you know, used to lay their eggs and everything. You know, it was just a nightmare. So I had to get rid of everything. But I love that balcony. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, that's really good to know. And then the last feature, again, it's an optional thing. I know that quite a lot of young professionals probably cycle to work and don't want to leave their quite expensive bikes outside. So is there an option where they can have a sort of a bike storage facility where you could potentially sort of have the bike in a position that doesn't take up the whole space, so you still get to enjoy your balcony with your cup of coffee in the morning type situation. So again, it's sort of getting feedback from residents to the types of fixtures and fittings that they'd find useful on a balcony.
Well, I'll have all that greenery. I'll have that on my firewall. I'll be in my element. You can't even sit out. I think, and the lady down the bottom, because our balconies are quite high. So even if you sit out there in the sun, it never hits the lower part of you anyway. It just hits your face, you know. I know I'd love it. As I say, everyone's got their own thing.
Yeah.
I love that wood stuff as well. That looks nice.
Yeah, it does look nice, doesn't it? It's quite a fancy balcony, that one.
It is.
I have to speak to the architects about that one.
Sorry, Pat, can I just ask Pat, when you say it never hits
Yeah.
your face, is that because the balcony above is shading you?
I'm at the top. So see the second one in with all the greenery. Well, that's my ceiling, so I've got no one over my head anyway. But the rest of it, I don't know if you can see there. Are any of these? They're not taken really of our balconies, are they?
No, they're not.
They are now, because they're so different in here. I think it is everyone's individual because we've got so many different shapes balconies in here, you know. The ones on the front, they're tiny little ones. At least mine is a proper balcony. It's got a proper drain in it, but the ones around the other side, they don't even have a drain. And it's a tiny little balcony, isn't it?
Yeah, so while we're talking about size, it's worth mentioning the current balconies are about 1 meter deep, some are even less.
Yeah.
We've suggested to the architects that the balconies are doubled in size, so they'll be twice as deep.
Yeah.
So that's one of the other possible things that we can, well, we've suggested it, and if that sounds good to the residents, which it probably does.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, good.
No, it's lovely. As I say, it's, you know, I'm closed in now, but them things, what you've got there, that would sort the pigeons out anyway, at least. You still get the sun and the light through. That looks lovely. I'll have anything, right?
Okay, great. I mean, if there's any other residents that would like to add anything.
Can I clarify something?
Yes, of course.
The old existing, the existing balconies, I was told that they will form part of the flat that's going to be closed, right? And then there on top, beside it, they would have an extended balcony. Is that how it's going to be?
That's the first I've heard of that particular design.
Yeah, that's not the first I heard about.
Yeah, I've not. Are you talking about for the upper floors or for the ground floors?
No, I'm talking about the part, because our side doesn't have these things about the balconies. It doesn't have the picture of it. So we asked that before, and they said it's going to form part of the house. They're going to close the existing balconies, and then they're going to add up exactly the same size balcony to it.
On which floor?
Ground
Which floor?
floor, I think.
I guess mine is on the ground floor. I guess that's
Yeah.
going to be also done with the other flats on top.
Well, so what we've suggested so far, what's in this conceptual design so far, is that the area of the ground floors gets enlarged with what's called a winter garden. So you've got those glazed areas at the back there. So it increases the amount of sort of living room space in those flats. And that would just be for the ground floors, but that would be all the way around the building.
Oh, just the ground floor?
Yeah, so the ground floors get that winter garden, and the upper floors would get the larger balcony.
So you mean to say the existing balconies are going to form part of the flat, and then they're going to add up? Is that how?
So there's a different design. There's a different proposal for the ground floors and the upper floors. So like here in this image, you can see all the ground floors have got a large glazed area on the ground floor. But from the floors going up, basically the flats that currently have balconies from the first floor going up, those balconies will get enlarged. They won't become part of the indoor area of the flat, but they will get bigger on the outside.
So
Right.
we were
So-
made to understand differently then.
So on that ground floor there, because the ones you're showing is not the same. They're the ones that are bed sets, aren't they?
No,
Are
mine,
they're not your ones, are they? What's your name, lady? I'm sorry.
Maria.
Maria. Okay, I'm Pat. Are you sure? Is this Bowmore Road? This bit?
No, it's on
Is that out the back of yours, Grenfell?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the south elevation of the building, the south side. The wall that faces
I ain't got a
south.
clue.
It's like it's block B. It's block
Okay,
B,
yeah.
the long section.
Right, the long section at the back.
That's
Right,
correct.
so that looks like what you're going to give them, fetch their balcony out, but put glazing up there or something. Is that what that looks like?
So on the very ground floor,
Yeah,
see where the balcony. So because all the balconies are coming further out by a meter,
yeah,
that would create an overhang over the ground floor flats. So
right.
what we're proposing to do is glaze in that whole section. So from the balcony edge coming down, it glazes in that whole section. So it increases the size of those flats by 2 meters going out. And then because it's glazed, it's going to let lots of light in as well.
Yeah.
So the existing balconies are not going to be added to the interior of the flat? No.
Not on the floors 1 and upwards.
No, the ground floor, it will be.
On the ground floor, it will be, yes.
And then they add another additional part for the balcony, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah.
All right. So that's the one I was trying to clarify.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Yeah.
The one that's going
I know
to
it's hard to understand everything when there's so few drawings.
Yeah.
They're very simple. It's also worth stating that like none of this has been confirmed. These are ideas, and it's really down to you, the residents, to say yes, we would like these glazed in areas, or yes, we'd like these enlarged balconies, or no, we wouldn't. You know, it's up to you guys.
Is it just me and Maria on here? I've not heard no one else speak.
I
think so, yeah.
I think so. I requested other people, but they're all from work. I don't know if they're all coming from work, but I doubt it if they're coming in.
Yeah. I was on one last night.
Anyway, oh, by the way, Pat, I'm the new block rep, assisting Nisha. I don't know.
Sorry, the new what?
Rep for Treadgold House.
Oh, right, okay.
At the same time, I'm a committee member of the RA.
Okay.
So.
Good luck. I've done it for 20 years. I'm having a rest.
No, I've just been there for barely a year. I came from Upper Clarendon Mall, the same.
Okay. Okay.
Also Lancaster West.
Right.
Good. So, yeah, thank you. I think all of this information is great, and we'll pass that on to the architects, and also we will again visualize some of those ideas, some of what we've talked about, of how the access could be improved, for example, and the green spaces around the buildings. And so we'll have another final one of these online workshops, and that will be on the 17th.
April.
Yes, Thursday. Tish, did we get that right?
15th
of April.
Is that a Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday.
Yeah,
15th.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, on the 15th of April.
15th.
That's the next meeting.
Yeah, so that'll be the 3rd.
That's about.
No, it's not far off, is it?
Yeah,
About
so
40.
going more like specific.
Yeah. Okay.
For gardens and outside spaces.
It's
All right.
It's more than 2 weeks from today. So yeah, again, if you can get other residents to join us, that'd be great. It will
The
build.
problem, Excuse me. The
Well-
problem is they want a later time, you know, when they can have they have time to come from work,
Yeah.
But that might be something to
like 7 o'clock maybe. That
Yeah.
would be ideal for them.
It might be worth considering changing the time to a
Yeah.
little bit later.
yeah.
We had one last night that I went on. It was about the
Yes, that's
the
I was
heating, but that started at 7.
yeah. I attended that.
There
Yeah.
was more people there, so maybe a good idea.
Yeah, that might be worth thinking about for the next one, just to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we'll keep you informed about
Yeah.
changes in
Lovely.
that happen.
That's April 15, right?
Yeah.
Good, and I'll pass over to. So thank you very much, Kat and
And
Maria.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Right, thank you, Maria.
Just give over to Hannah. Maybe you
I
want
think,
to say
yeah, I'll just finish up. I think, do we have a slide with details of the newsletter and stuff on? Yeah, so just to quickly say thanks again, Pat, and thanks, Maria, for coming along.
That's all right. You're welcome.
I'm sure like this feedback's been really useful, and I'm sure for Mich and Tish it'll be like really helpful when you're looking at how the actual design's going to work out. Yeah, just quickly plug the resident e-newsletter if you're not already part of it. Then if you like
Okay.
scan the QR code on the screen with your phone, or if you go through like the app, you'll be able to sign up for it. And it's the best place just to find any further details on like the refurb and stuff going forward. And there'll be some more stuff about kind of the wider Treadgold refurb coming up. So I'm sure you'll hear
Okay.
all about that soon enough. But yeah, thank you
Right, lovely.
for coming along. And yeah, next one on the 15th will be there, and we'll let you know if there's a change in time. So just make sure more people.
Okie doke.
Yeah.
Radio.